now come to Unit 3. We have looked at the background of the biblical patriarchal family as they have journeyed from southern Mesopotamia to northern or central upper Mesopotamia, the region of Haran, from which, after the death of Abram's father, Terah, he begins the migration following God's call, a several weeks journey going from Haran in the region of Aram Naharaim, journeying to the land of promise, generally known as the land of Canaan. As they came in, of course, we looked at in last unit's study the call of Abraham to be a blessing to the nations, in Genesis 12, 1-9. We continue the movement throughout the land of Canaan with particular emphasis upon sites that will be important throughout biblical history. What is fascinating in the story is the first place that Abraham comes to, the region of Shechem, often considered the center of the land of Canaan. It's centrally located in the mountains, both east-west and north-south through the land, and this is where Abraham first encounters God, builds an altar, worships God, celebrates this new, growing relationship with a God who has called him. As you work your way through the Hebrew text, you begin to pick up on the nature of the Hebrew narrative. We often call this telescopic geographical narrative. He is quickly going to move into the land of Canaan, coming first, at least in the biblical narrative, the site of Shechem, journeying soon later, basically another day or perhaps even 2 days' journey down to the region of Bethel. Bethel, of course, later is where Jacob will encounter God in this vision, the nighttime vision, as he is sleeping, of the stairway or ladder leading up into heaven, and the ascending and descending of the angelic messengers from God to Abraham during this dream experience. The site of Bethel, and then quickly they'll move into the Negev, often translated the southern region, the region that would include places like Beersheba, south of the city of Hebron, where the biblical patriarchs will spend much of their time in that area south of Jerusalem, but also the biblical Negev that will extend ultimately to the area where you make a bridge over to the land of Egypt. And that's, of course, where we find in the next phase of the biblical narrative of our passage for today as we continue into the end of Genesis chapter 12 and the beginning of chapter 13. A unique setting. So very quickly they journey through the land, going through the land of Canaan and ending up in Egypt. That Abraham is not the perfect individual is evidenced in the story of Abram's attempt to pass off Sarah in the land of Egypt. The amazing part of the story, as we often have to admit from our own ministries, God blesses Abraham in spite of his shortcomings. The dealing with Sarah and the relationship to Pharaoh, he's acting out of fear in the land, and yet God reveals himself even to Pharaoh through punishment, a plague, but through the end, God blesses both Pharaoh and Abraham because God's ultimate intent is to bless all the nations of the earth through Abraham and his descendants.